Hello, and welcome to my new Let's Make series, where I try my very bestest to put characters from different series in Honkai Star Rail. Now, how would I do that? Well, I create a hypothetical kit that a character would have if they were put into the game. Today, I'm gonna do just that with Shulk from Xenoblade Chronicles. I'm sure most of you know of him from Super Smash Bros., but there's a lot more that he can do with his weapon, the Monado, than Smash shows. I aim to make a kit that represents his game and abilities from said game while still feeling true to Star Rail. So with that, let's get into it!
Talk all you want, because those words will be your last!
Shulk is an imaginary preservation character, and he's definitely totally not power creeping Ventrine, right? Well, I tried to balance him. Why Shulk imaginary preservation, you may ask? Well, the imaginary element is practically the light element in Star Rail, and Shulk in Xenoblade 2 was the light element. Plus, the Monado's blade is actually made of light. He's a preservation because in Xenoblade 3, he's a defender class, and in the original game, his entire gimmick is changing the future and saving his allies with visions. I designed his kit around that exact idea, Shulk getting a vision and you working to change the future. But we'll get to that. First, his basic attack. Its animation would be based off of Stream Edge. In the original game, Stream Edge hits multiple enemies in front of you and inflicts Break. I decided to tone it down to one enemy, and Shulk won't inflict Break unless he has his light cone, which we'll get to later.
This is the Monado's power!
His skill allows him to select a Monado art. You'll tap the skill button to change your basic attack into different Monado arts. They would cost skill points. Monado arts offer a range of utility, which makes Shulk a jack of all trades. His main purpose is to protect your party and shred enemy weakness bars, but he can do so much more. To balance this, he's extremely skill point heavy. You'll practically always be using a skill point with him. Let's get to the different arts.
Monado, protect us!
Monado armor is best used for helping your party survive when Shulk doesn't have his ultimate ready yet.
Monado Eater!
Monado Eater is very powerful against enemies who have a load of self buffs, and the speed decrease is tiny, but it may help you act before them.
Monado Buster!
Monado Buster is extremely valuable, as it makes Shulk one of the best characters to use for weakness breaking. I designed the amount of toughness it deals to be a huge chunk of even an average boss's toughness gauge. I even made it deal damage if the enemy is weak to imaginary, as a reference to its double effect against Mechon in the original game.
You're not invincible! Monado, enchant!
Monado Enchant is a nice buff Shulk can provide for his party if you choose to go all in on damage. This can be useful for pure fiction where you don't usually get hit as often. I wanted a risk and reward element with Shulk. He can do everything, but it's always at a cost. Is it worth it to buff your party, or to protect them? Is that skill point going to cost you? Enchant in the original game allows your party members to deal damage to Mechon and boost your damage. Therefore, I thought Defense Shred was the most accurate betrayal. These are the arts you have to choose from usually, however there are two more you can use after his ultimate. But we'll get to that after this. His talent is Vision! At the beginning of a battle, Shulk will see every enemy's action prior to their turn. It won't activate if they act immediately. The goal is to use that knowledge to your advantage and change the future.
I'm seeing something.
In the right corner of the screen, there will be a vision tag, displaying who will get hit and what damage they'll take. If you change the future in any way, that vision tag will break, allowing Shulk to advance forward. This can happen by killing the enemy, breaking the enemy, using a shield to protect you, using Monado armor to decrease the damage, and so on. Vision won't work on enemies such as the monkey who changes targets dependent on your skill point usage. Talent will also allow Shulk to always get an extra action after using his ultimate. You'll find out why.
Alright, time for a chain attack!
His ultimate is Chain Attack. To reference how it works in his original game, the damage multiplier of his ultimate increases for every other ultimate you activate prior to his own. That makes it a true chain attack. It'd be an animation of him beating up the enemy with every ally who activated their ultimate prior. If nobody did, he's all alone, looking like a loser. After ultimate activation, your basic and skill change to Monado Shield and Monado Speed. Since you action advance forward, you'll always use these right after.
Monado, shield us!
Monado Shield won't cost any skill points to use. It's exactly what you think. He gives shields to the entire party.
Monado, save us from harm!
Monado Speed costs a skill point, however it's arguably really useful in many scenarios. Let's say you know for a fact only one character will be hit from the vision. You can use Monado Speed to make them invulnerable to damage and increase their speed. That speed buff can be very useful for hypercarry teams, and I encourage the player to stack speed on Shulk himself to make this buff useful. Again, this is risk and reward. You could just use shield to protect everyone, but you can also gain more if you use speed right.
The future is ours to decide!
Now for his traces, which make him even more powerful.
Light heal!
His first trace is Light Heal. Light heals just like how it was in his game, however he'll automatically use it if an ally is below 50% health. It won't fully heal them, it'll usually be just a small boost, but it's meant to help you for those periods where you have no shield to protect you and have to tank hits.
Awesome! How do you like that?
His second trace is a reference to the tension system from Xenoblade 1. The characters can get hype and gain even more accuracy, so for every vision tag you break, Shulk will become more fired up and his attack will increase.
This'll leave a mark! Shaker Edge!
His third trace is Shaker Edge. In the original game, it inflicted Daze. Daze can only be inflicted on topple enemies, and topple can only be inflicted with break. To try and recreate this system, I imagine that when an enemy is weakness broken, that is the equivalent to toppling them. So if Shulk uses his basic on a weakness broken enemy, his animation will change and he'll delay their action even more, just as it worked in his game. This also gives some utility to his basic attack, which any other time you'd never want to use. So, in summary, this is how you'd play.
Everyone, let's go!
You'd use skill points like crazy, usually be run with speed boots, require an energy regeneration rope to properly protect his party, since his ultimate would require a huge 150 energy, and therefore he would need to run a defense/attack body and defense/attack spear. This means he would never surpass the numbers a Ventrine would have with his defense, and he would never surpass a damage dealer's attack, at least without his signature light cone and the buffs he attains in battle. I thought heavily how to balance him and came up with this concept, that because he's so strict on these stats, his attack and defense would never get too ridiculous, and he would be way too hard to build crit on. So in reality, his damage isn't as insane as you'd think, unless you got extremely lucky with crit substats. At level 80 with his light cone, I'd expect 3000 HP, 3000 attack, 3000 defense, 144 plus speed, 5% crit rate, and 50% crit damage. His base speed would be 100, so you'd need speed boots and some substats to get him there. He's super flexible and yet super skill based. You could probably run attack boots due to his action advances, but you'd lose getting your ult more frequently, which means far more risk, and you would give up the better speed buff you would provide from Monado Speed. I've mentioned it a few times, let's go over his light cone.
I'm really feeling it.
His light cone would help him regenerate energy and boost his attack, allowing you to run defense pieces more easily if you want that comfortability. Most of everything he does scales off of attack, but he's super fragile on his own, which is why it would be very smart to do defense. But he's so flexible you can literally just do whatever you can do with your ability. The light cone allows him to inflict break via any instance of damage he deals. This further pushes the idea of breaking as much as you can with him in your party, just as you would want to spam topple locking in Xenoblade. Lastly, let's go over his Eidolons. His E1 further helps in breaking enemies. His E2 is a massive game changer, as his arts usually don't last long enough to allow you to stack other benefits. E2 Shulk is a very different character, as you can either spam even more artifacts, or you can make him more skill point friendly. His E4 can help give him more effect res, mainly just to make him on par with the Ventrine, but the real reason you would want this is for more energy.
E4 Shulk can get his ultimates far more, which can change how you build him or go about his teams. It makes getting the full effect of chain attack more difficult, but also makes him more comfortable to use in protecting everyone. E6 is usually incredibly broken for most characters, and I decided on this. He would weakness break enemies even more easily, have an even better action delay, and he would buff the party's attack. It's useful and definitely a huge buff, but not something you would scream necessary, which is what I would prefer from any Eidolon.
We got through that pretty good! That's awesome!
So, there you have it. That's Shulk designed as a character in Honkai Star Rail. Do you think he would be broken? Or do you think he would be lacking? My input is that his endless utility would make him never not useful, but his skill-based gameplay would also make him far harder to use for players who don't want to put much thought into what they do. Comment below if you have any additional ideas. Think he power creates a Ventrine, if you enjoyed the video, or hell, even if you thought this video was stupid. I'd greatly appreciate if you liked and subscribed, if you haven't, to tell me you would want more of this content.
With all that being said, I'll catch you in the next one. Goodbye, everyone.
Or else you will die.